Welcome to another episode of Tech Lounge, a podcast where we discuss the ever-changing world of technology. And now your host, Dan Duran.
Woo-hoo-hoo. I love that clapping at the very end of the intro. Everybody, hello, welcome. Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Duran, and your host at the Tech Lounge, where we discuss topics related to business, leadership, technology. We have an amazing and very helpful show for you today on cybersecurity. Remember, we stream live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, as well as major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Podbeam. So please make sure you follow us using the hashtag Dan Duran and watch us every Friday, 12 o'clock. This is the Tech Lounge, so sit back and relax. Woo! So the tech show today is about cybersecurity for small businesses and medium-sized businesses as well. We should include. We condensed it to the top 5 cybersecurity tips that every small business needs to implement now. Our guest today is Cedric Puddy. He is the VP of Technology at Pundit. Hello, Cedric. How are you?
Oh, we're doing great. Really glad to be here, and this is going to be good fun.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. We also have my co-host extraordinaire, Andrew Summerton, CEO of Bewire Technologies and Rhino Cybersecurity. Make sure you follow the websites. Go to the websites. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm great, buddy. Good to be here, guys. As always, Cedric, wonderful having you.
All right. So the first segment, as usual, is called our backstory. And this is where we have a chance to give you a little bit of information about our guest, how we met, etc. And usually, Andrew takes over this portion of the show. So go ahead, Andrew.
All right, thanks, buddy. So just so everybody knows, so Cedric is an MSP that deals with a lot of IT issues and cybersecurity issues with organizations, small, medium, and probably some large too, right, Cedric?
Sure do.
Absolutely. So what we've been very proud and blessed to partner with Cedric on some of his partnerships and on the cybersecurity side of things through Rhino with our MDR, our Managed Detection and Response solution. And today we just want to dive in a little bit deeper and bring Cedric as an expert and our partner to talk about those tips that are going to basically be very helpful for you as a small to mid-sized business. So Cedric, let's learn some things, guys.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely. It's all about learning. So I always ask our guests, tell us a little bit about yourself. So not the company that you represent and not your role, but yourself, your passion, your hobbies. Who is Cedric Puddy?
Well, basically, standard nerd. I've been into computing since I was quite young in the '80s, and I've made it my life's work kind of thing. I've been just working away at this stuff since 1997 professionally for SMB, primarily in this area. Done a lot of cool things along the way. Lots of neat stories, lots of neat people, and it's just always been rewarding and interesting, and just all the different places you get welcomed into. I also have interests in live music production. I'm learning to play the piano.
Nice.
I'm terrible at it, 100%. But
And you're honest.
I wasn't getting into it to give Glenn Gould a run for his money or nothing. But nor Billy Joel. But and I do, and for many years I've been into event photography as well. So
Great.
So I love going to, a music festival or a performance festival and taking lots of great shots and stuff like that. So
amazing.
Yeah. So one way or another, there's all kinds of neat stuff going on.
Absolutely. So tell us about Pundit. Walk us through what Pundit does, and what's an average day at the office.
Well, it's we're a full stack MSP, so the kinds of folks who we typically deal with are they're like, gosh, that looks technical, and push it over our way, and we sort of advise from there, and either deal with it or play traffic cop if it's something in the ERP system or something. So we provide that holistic support for our clients. We're a team of 10 people. We've been at this.
Okay.
It's an outgrowth of what I was doing as an individual. I was a guy with his trusty Rolodex up until 2010. But I met back up with a guy that I'd worked with back in the 90s that I'd stayed in touch with, and he's like, "Oh, hiring people is fine," and so
Yes.
and uh, and so we got into it. And at this point, we're basically 11 years in. I'm blessed to deal with an incredible group of humans every day. When I get
Yes.
to the office, they're just amazing,
That's great.
and we've got lots of and the relationships with our clients are again so rewarding. So that's basically us. We just anything in that small business sort of envelope,
Yes.
we're able to speak to one way or another, and it's all about just having great relationships and getting
Amazing.
it all done.
Amazing. So a couple of things. First of all, Andrew, my co-host, just dropped. I think he's having some issues with his technology, his cameras. I know he was struggling to get his iPhone 12 Pro Max that we just purchased not too long ago to do these amazing shows. He just dropped off. So as soon as he's back, we'll get him back, and he'll be asking questions. So let me just do the interaction with the crowd. Diego says, hello, guys. Adrian Perez, hello. He says, it's good to see you. We have Andrea Ramirez, hello. Eduardo Escalante, big shout out to Eduardo. Excited to be in this live. We have Boris saying hi. Gabriela, Julian, hello, guys. So we get a lot of shout outs. Shout outs to you guys for, saying hi and giving us so much love. So we welcome any questions that you might have right now in terms of IT, MSP, cybersecurity, and so let's get started, right? So let's dive into cybersecurity and small businesses, Cedric. Why is this so important? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
It's only your whole business riding on it. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, most small businesses can run for a couple days if there's a serious problem with the technology, but after that, it starts to get a little weird. And as any small business operator, there's the livelihoods of everyone we work with, riding on it, right? Our coworkers,
Absolutely.
our clients, and all that kind of stuff. So, it's just so important to keep everything in motion, and and we need computers to do that.
Yep. Let me give you a few stats that I fished out from the web. I think this is from the study done by Gartner, 2021. 83% of small and medium-sized businesses are not financially prepared to recover from a cyber attack. That's a huge number. 43% of all data breaches involve small and medium-sized businesses. So it's not just for the big guys that get hacked, but almost half of them are small and medium-sized businesses, right? And the last one that I have is 61% of all SMBs have reported at least one cyber attack during 2021. We're not even finishing 2021, and that statistic says it all, right? So those things tell you right away, cybersecurity is extremely important for small businesses. These numbers are definitely staggering, right? So I don't mean to put the fear of God on everybody, but it is a very important subject, and we're so happy that you're here, Cedric. So as an MSP, can you tell me, what do you see in the field? What do you see in the field with your customers and people that you interact with?
Well, I think one of the things, like, with being a small business, you have to pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
You have to do so many things, and it's the biggest thing is, finding the right level of taking it seriously, and doing a lot with what you got. It's like every other facet of the business. Um,
Yes.
but big results don't require big budgets, necessarily. Um,
Absolutely.
it's that human wild card. Done with a little care and intent, the technology pieces can be really quite effective.
Yeah. So
Um,
human wildcard. I love how you put it. Human wildcard. Can you explain what that is and a little more in detail?
well, it's just whenever you get people involved, your results become a little bit undefined.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
because everyone's got their
Oh,
own
he's
take on
back.
it.
Wait a minute. Andrew's back. Hello,
I-
Andrew.
I was-
We missed
as-
you, man.
I was going to say, can you guys see me and hear me okay?
100%, bud.
Okay, well,
Yes.
we're in a tech lounge, guys, and I just want to let everyone out there who's watching know it happens to all of us, and so I'm terribly sorry for the interruption, but we're back. What happened was just a little tip: if you're doing a live feed, make sure you're on your phone or your computer. My phone, I turned off the sound, and so someone called me. It was a business call, let me tell you, but it interrupted
Oh.
everything. So I'm terribly sorry, Cedric. Back over to you, and I'm happy to be back, guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
happened to me too.
I just have to hit a do not disturb myself here just a second.
Yeah, well,
you're
one
welcome
day
for
what
the
I did
tip.
is what I did one day, instead of hitting the do not disturb, I hit my my data, right? So I think it was the airplane mode. So and then I completely went offline, and I was like, what the? Oh my god. So anyways, so we're talking about cybersecurity, and you're talking about the wild card and how the human component is so unpredictable. It's not like Elon Musk's humanoid that he's inventing that is going to be perfect, right? So we are all over the place. Everybody's all over the place when it comes to not just IT, but cybersecurity. Is that
Yeah.
is that correct? A
Oh, yeah.
good assumption? Yeah.
Yeah. It's the thing about the computer and the tools can't save you from yourself, right? And when you start looking at all these fancy security processes and stuff like that, what it really comes down to: have you identified some key things to keep an eye on, and
Yes.
have you put in your calendar, meetings in which you're accountable to, with someone, that's going to check this off. And when you ask a question, is it a question that demands proof?
Mhm.
For example, the other month, we had somebody come to us on a time and materials basis, whose business, supporting more than 150 employees, tens of millions of dollars a year, all of their servers completely ransomed. And I was talking with him, and he's like, well, I thought I was doing everything right. Once a week,
Wow.
my IT guy would come by and he'd drop off a fresh hard drive, and I'd say, is everything on there? And he'd say, yeah.
Yes.
But it's not a specific question, right?
Absolutely.
Never once had he actually just randomly picked a file off the server and said, hey, let's restore this. And it turned out when the brown stuff hit the impeller, that there was a problem, and it's a heck of a time to find out.
Well, I think that's Cedric. I think that's
Yeah,
really,
I like the way you put it. The brown stuff hit the impeller. So politically correct in that statement. Absolutely. So sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Andrew.
I was going to ask you. I mean, based on that, Cedric. I mean, have you noticed that with small to mid-sized businesses, because obviously cybersecurity is such a huge concern, but it's still a secondary thought for these businesses and stuff. And if they have an IT individual in their organization, or even an MSP, how seriously are they looking at cybersecurity right now, or is it an after effect? Is it, oh my goodness, we've just got, we've been phished, or we have some ransomware, and now we have to be not proactive, reactive. And are you noticing that people are being more reactive now, or proactive? Hopefully,
It's always a mix, and it's always a partnership.
Right.
right?
Yes.
We're able to do our best work for the people who take it seriously,
Yeah.
right? And the guys who are like, no, or or have or for whom it's always being pushed back or something like that. I mean, we're all human beings, right?
Absolutely.
So it's easiest to move forward an agenda when there's that political will involved. That's where it all starts.
Right.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm going to tell you what it is. And I'm going to tell it to you right now. There's no ROI on cybersecurity. And that's the problem, right? So,
Yep.
whenever you make an investment, let's say
Great
a
point,
new
Dan.
widget, a new machine, a new service, you're always looking for that ROI, right? Whether it's marketing, sales, etc., operations, you want to see how you're going to get your money back as fast as possible and get that ROI. Like
Yep.
the sooner the better, right? In cybersecurity, unfortunately, the ROI happens when you get hacked or when you don't get hacked, right? So there's no ROI. It's just an investment that you have to make, just like insurance, to protect yourself in case something happens. So and then something happens, and then you're out of luck, right?
Well, and I think the
you
reality
can
of it
lose a
is
lot of money.
100%. And I think the reality of it is it's not if, it's when you're going to be affected somehow. And it doesn't have to be maybe one of these extreme cases that everybody's reading about, but somehow, some way, it's not if, it's when you will be affected in a cybersecurity concern.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's 100%. The concept that there's the insurance concept is really key here, because everyone knows, broadly speaking, we're all agreed that that going and driving a couple tons of metal around at high speeds, if something wrong happens, we're all basically agreed we don't have a couple million to make it right, as to pay for what to pay the piper. And so yeah, we all got to have insurance if we're going to get out there in the city streets. And so it goes with computers as well. There's an aspect to computing, all that traditional IT stuff, that generates demonstrable ROI.
Yes.
And some of that stuff also overlaps really well with protections from harm, right? It's risk analysis. And there's things that we do where we may never know if it saved us or not, right?
Right.
Because you don't know when you've necessarily dodged a bullet, right? You just know when you've gotten hit.
Exactly.
And I find that especially in the SMB side, that the additional costs that are purely insurance, if you will, aren't necessarily the biggest part of the budget. So much of the stuff we have to do anyway. But I mean, you look at you look at things like backups and having redundancies and stuff like
Yes.
that. I mean, there's an argument that those are insurance kind of things, and there's an argument that yes, of course, we know that things that spin around or consume lots of power, that they could break. So yeah, we should have we should have a UPS, or we should have 2 power supplies in that server, or we should have
Absolutely.
backup so that we can get our data back. It was way too much work to generate the data in the first place, stuff like that. And it ties back into the cybersecurity stuff beautifully, because the cybersecurity stuff is where you've got people who are actively trying to expose you to risk. It's not just, is there a manufacturing defect? But the same kind of basic, what if this happens thought process applies.
Right.
Okay.
Can I afford it if this happens?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we have the top 5. I mean, there's like a million probably tips on cybersecurity and IT, right? But we have the top 5. I have my top 5. You have your top 5, and I think they mesh. So why don't we get going on them? And but before we do that, Andrew, do we have any comments, any questions from the people out there? Any shout outs?
Just a lot of love right now. I think everybody's listening. I think everybody's anxious to get to the 5 questions. Definitely looking forward to hearing more. Love the insights. Highs, hellos, hearts, etc. But the questions, I think we're waiting on some of the questions to come through.
Okay, perfect. So number 1, I have and these are not in order of priority, by the way. Like cybersecurity is like an onion, right? So you have to go layer by layer to be able to protect a company, or just like the baseline cybersecurity controls from the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity states, it's the 80-20 rule, right? Achieve 80% of benefit from the 20% of the efforts, right? So, and we'll get to talking about how it's not as expensive as what people think to do all of these cybersecurity things, right? So the first one that we have is the backups and disaster recovery, right? You were talking, Cedric, about this client that got ransomware and they lost all the data. Tell us a little bit about that story, or how important backups are for an organization.
Backups tend to be the strongest armor that small business can have, right? Typically speaking, most of the small businesses that I deal with would be barely scratched by somebody stealing their data, right? My gosh, you got my QuickBooks file. I sell things for a markup. My God, right? If word of this gets out, I'm doomed. It's typically speaking, it would be embarrassing and inconvenient, and habitually we guard many aspects of these data. But if push really came to shove, the revealing of a lot of this data wouldn't necessarily be the existential end of the world, but not being able to accurately pay your taxes, or not being able to meet your payroll on time, and not being able to missing various and sundry important obligations that you couldn't do because you had literally lost records.
Yes.
And stuff like that would be far more harmful. And so,
absolutely.
And so for a lot of my SMB customers, the sort of evolution of ransomware to blackmailware, if you will, isn't as big a deal in some cases, though there are certainly some who are dealing in trade secrets or truly confidential stuff, or electronic health records and stuff, in which case, but the highest priority still is the backups. And the main thing with the backups is that they have to be isolated from the rest of the system, right? If you can just go on the server or wherever the data is and click on something, and see the files that constitute your backups, so can ransomware.
Right.
Yes.
Actually, speaking of ransomware, Cedric, Diego actually just posted a question everybody can see, talking about ransomware. Once a hacker gets your data, the only way to recover is to pay the ransom, or is there something else a small business can do?
Ooh.
Just restore from backup.
Yes.
Which is sometimes which could be like, which could be something like saying, ask the butler on your yacht to give you your stuff back. Or it could be, oh, sure, I'll do that.
Well, exactly. I mean, but if you don't have backups, then you're basically done.
But
business is done, right?
That's where the armor thing comes in.
Yeah.
But in regards to this small, and in regards to the small and the mid-sized business, so cybersecurity still is an unknown for a lot of businesses. There's the fear factor, there's the cost factor, there's the uncertainty, is a big part of this. And Dan, I'm going to allude to you. You use this analogy a lot, and I love it. Cybersecurity is like an onion. And I know something that we do very well at Rhino Cybersecurity. We go into small to mid-sized businesses and we assess where they are, and we advise them how to get to a certain place. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I think that's really what I want to get at. I would like everybody to get across today from this is that, cybersecurity doesn't apply the same rules and regulations for every small, medium, and large business. Everybody's at a different stage, and a good MSP, a really good Rhino, a real good cybersecurity organization, or anybody who's informed will actually guide you to that path to get you to protection, right? And so I think that's what I really want people to understand today, is because you're going to hear a lot of words, a lot of buzzwords, a lot of you're all kinds of stuff today. It's going to be like, oh, even more information to concern me, and I think it's really important about guiding them from A to Z in a very cost-effective, secure manner to get them to where they need to be. And again, everybody's different, right?
Exactly. And I think you hit it right on the nail there. Cost effective, right? So there are solutions out there that cost you an arm and a leg, right? And sometimes it's kind of like it's a lot for small businesses to digest, right? So we have to make it cost effective for small and medium sized businesses, right? That's the key. And you might not necessarily need all the solutions, but the key, like the top 5 in here, are very important to tackle. So how about we go into questions? Any questions, Andrew, on the
Yeah,
from
we just got one, just came across the screen from Boris. Hey guys, what is your opinion on zero trust strategies? Is it enough to protect your small business?
You want to start, Dan, or shall I?
No, you go
Dan,
ahead.
I was going to say,
I want to see what you say.
Any of
on
us can
MSP.
go, but go ahead.
That's a good question. That's a really good question, actually.
The main thing is, I think, for a lot of small business is that it's too much to protect your small business. The zero trust architectures and stuff that people are, like it's a concept that's been around for a good long while, and what it comes down to is this principle that the standard network architecture for small business is crunchy shell, chewy center.
Crunchy shell, chewy center.
Once you bust through that shell, it's off you go. And zero trust, the zero trust strategy is a segmentation strategy. It's about trying to put up internal protections so that you can't just go and wander hither, thither, and yon. And the idea is, and it's a really powerful idea, is that no one thing should be able to just go and do whatever they want without any limitations, without any auditing and all that kind of stuff. And so there's lots of great stuff to inform, and it's a great perspective for how you can put together the pieces that you've got available and the resources and marshal your resources. It's also one of those things that's being used heavily in the buzzword industry.
Yes.
There's lots of stuff that I can go out and buy at this point, which apparently give me I just need to start paying so much per user, and I've got a zero trust architecture. Huzzah! Of course, it's not really quite that simple.
Yes, and the other thing is, it is the annoyance of zero trust because of all the policies and all the features that you have to, or the hoops that you have to go through. And I believe, personally think that zero trust is better designed for large organizations, right? Government, where you're protecting PHI, so like a personal health information, right? So or large organizations that have like 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 endpoints and employees, and that's where the concept of zero trust becomes much more palatable for organizations. But for a small company, for a small business that has 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, I think that's kind of overshooting, right?
Well, here's I think the issue that's why some of these architectures don't scale down well, and that is that if you're going to segment things, you need different things to segment between. In a typical small business, you have a very small number of things, and you can't have half a thing and still have it work any more than you can have 2.5 children and have
on average. That would be an average.
It's a great average.
I love all these analogies.
Yeah,
but half a it's just one of those things. Half a person is not a functional person, and half a server is not a functional server. Half an accounting system is not a functional accounting system. And so when you go and say have really different classes of service, really different classes of information to protect, really different classes of style of use or criticality, then those are what create your opportunities to segment things meaningfully, right? Yeah, you've got electronic
Absolutely.
health information, 100%. Build a nice wall around that, have special processes around it, have it be that in order to do certain things with it, it can only be done from certain places, and stuff like that. But ultimately, if you've got one or two or three resources, when you get down to brass tacks, and you've got one administrator and 10 people who depend on it, it's heck on wheels to try and find a way to segment in a way that makes any real sense.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Hey guys,
let's
I'm gonna I was gonna say, Dan, let's jump in ahead, because I think for sake of time, we could talk about this for hours, as we all know. But I think we're on tip number 1 of tip 5, and we're already half an hour in. So let's get on to number 2.
Okay, number 2. I have again, these are not in order of priority, but I have endpoint protection. So we're talking about antivirus, endpoint protection, web filtering, all of that stuff that has to do with the endpoints. What do you think about that? What do you see in the field? First of all, do you see all over the place? And what do you think about endpoint protection?
It's a super important part of the stack, and it's becoming an even more important part of the stack. One of the things that we're seeing about that's just become really stark with so many people moving to remote work and whatnot is that you can put the world's fanciest router in the office that's got all the protections and all this, that, and the other, but folks are sitting at home and they're connecting to Google Workspace or Office 365 or whatever else, an online CRM or something like that. None of that's going through the office. All of that's completely invisible to your fancy firewall.
Right.
So the really core surface area that really matters is increasingly becoming the individual PCs, in terms of what you need to instrument and need to know what's going on, and that they be able to be reasonably sane. They're also really complicated devices, so to actually guarantee beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're 100% trustworthy is also a tricky bit of business, right? So you have to, so unless you're, one of them, there are 3-letter agencies, at some point you simply have to say, I've done as much as I reasonably can. So no, those things are important.
Yes.
Having
web filtering is incredibly important as well, and people don't know what it is sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So web filtering is basically on your browser, Edge, Chrome, Firefox, etc., whatever browser you use. It tells you what websites and I mean, this is not perfect, obviously, but it tells you which website you should not click on, right? And if you happen to click on websites that have malware and things like that, then instead of going into the actual website, you're presented with a screen that says, "Oh, do not go in there." So web filtering, I find that is, and that's one of the things, like for example, Microsoft that does not offer that out of the shelf, right? So that's something that you have to buy extra, and it's not very expensive, right? It's just a couple of bucks per user per month or something like that, right, Cedric?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and it can save your butt. DNS filtering, web filtering, such. If anything, those are potentially more important than traditional antivirus in many ways, because those tend to be more effective at stopping the initial vector from getting on your machine in the first place. And traditional antivirus has always been luck of the draw as to whether or not it's able to pick up whatever the current thing trying to get in the door is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey,
and
guys,
you know what?
go ahead.
People are not going to, like, hackers are not going to send you an email with an attachment that is has scripts, because they know that antivirus will stop that. What they will do, and what the norm is right now, I mean, there's still those actors out there, but the norm is phishing, right? So send you phishing attacks, and then you click on the link, and then you go to a website, right? And that website is hacked, and that's how it happens. But if you have web filtering or DNS filtering, then that gets stopped right on its track. So let's move on. Right?
I was gonna say, let's ask. Andrew has a question we've had up here for a little bit. It's
okay.
Let's just answer that and then go on to number 3. What about security audits? How do I know if or when a security audit is needed for my business?
Well, I would say is it depends on whether you've got a good feel for the lay of the land in your business and how it's going, and how confident you are in your own ability to generate that that confidence and know that you've got it covered reasonably. Having a security audit is phoning a friend. It's having somebody come by and give you a second opinion and look over it. For most small businesses, it doesn't take that long to go through and catalog more or less what you got going on, and give you a second opinion, help you identify some gaps. And it's not something that you have to do over and over and over and over again. You know, you take the you take the report and the notes, and you discuss it internally with whoever helps you with your IT if you don't do it yourself, with whoever did the audit. And you know, hopefully you've identified some nice low-hanging fruit that you can knock off and improve your life without having to spend a whole lot more.
Well, and that's exactly it too. I think also depending on the size and where you are in that process. I mean, there's a couple different ways of looking at it, because you can do vulnerability and penetration tests, right? A penetration test is a lot more deep. A vulnerability is a very surface level. So you can have a lot of organizations out there help you with that, you know, and give you that surface level, and then provide that to your IT. And then if you need to go deeper, so be it. But it doesn't. And again, there's also the supply chain concept, because a lot of these big corporations, if you're doing business with them, they're asking you to be more secure along the way. So you should be looking into that. If you're a small company doing business with bigger companies, if they haven't started speaking to you about your security concerns, I'm sure they're going to in the near future. And then, you know, vulnerability reports, penetration things are going to be more relevant to you sooner than later, I'm thinking.
Yeah. So my question to you is, how many times do you do an annual checkup at your doctor's office? I do it every year. I'm getting older, right? Like I'm 44, so the older I get, the more I think I have to do my security, my medical checkups, right? And cybersecurity is the same thing. The network or your environment, your business is constantly moving. It's very active. You're introducing new possible vulnerabilities into the network, new devices. It is a dynamic entity where so for me, assessments, penetration tests, vulnerability assessments, security audits, they should be. You don't have to do them every week, but there should be some sort of consistencies, you know, every quarter. If you are in a more vulnerable industry, right? So healthcare, for example, finance, you know, like you should do it at least every quarter. But if you are in a less vulnerable industry, at least every 6 months to a year, you should be doing some sort of vulnerability assessment on your network, right? That's kind of what how I take it.
Yeah, that's the thing that the key takeaway that I think you highlight there, Dan, by implication, is that security, like the day-to-day details of what's happening in the security landscape, is a big fire hose. Like some of the mailing lists I'm on generate 100 emails a day. I cannot read them all, and those are highlight summaries of the absolute most interesting things that are happening, and there's too many of them for me to read. And I'm a professional in this space. I'm not a cybersecurity professional. I'm a generalist because of the MSP practice that I have. But the thing is that most small business owners, unless they are in fact IT shops, have other things to do than keep track of what the trends in cybersecurity are.
Absolutely.
So and so periodically checking in with somebody who does track that a heck of a lot more actively is a really cost-effective way of making sure that you're staying current, right? I know,
Absolutely.
like with our clients, we sit down on a regular basis to talk about what we see going on. This is not at all unusual in IT shops and stuff like that. If you don't have a sounding board or somebody who you're working with regularly to who's proactively calling you to do that. That's the other thing. No one can do this on their own, really,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Because the thing is, like, if you live with something for 10 years, the issues with it that but there's going to be stuff where in your blind spot that you don't know, and the only way you're
Absolutely.
going to find it is by having another set of eyes,
Well,
by
I mean,
having another perspective,
that
and
that
being open
speaks
to that other perspective.
that speaks beautiful to our partnership, right, Cedric? I mean, at the end of the day, you have your skill set and your professionalism, and that's
Yes.
why partnering with us at Rhino, it gives you that extra set of eyeballs, helps you basically dive deeper for your clients, etc. And I think that's what's kind of what you're alluding to, because everybody has their skill sets, and with the changing landscape dramatically, I mean, this is what we live, sleep, and eat and breathe at Rhino. And obviously, us partnering on the things that we do obviously strengthens that skill set you have as well. So I mean,
Absolutely.
it's
So,
so important.
I don't mean to cut you off, but we are
Yep,
very, very
I know.
Number
pressed for
three,
time right now,
right?
and we're only at number 3, which is a very important one too. And they say that is the weakest link, right?
Most
And which
most
is the
important.
human component, right? So
Oh, who's getting voted off the island?
so I have number 3 as cybersecurity awareness training. It's so important to know what you're getting into and what's what, phishing and all of that stuff. What can you say about that, Cedric?
Absolutely. The we all know folks who love nothing better than to just click on everything, and this is a risk. The computers are just there to do what we tell them to. Sometimes it's really hard to figure out how to tell them what we want, but in this case, it's about just it's like picking up the phone and having somebody say that your social insurance number has been compromised. What? Right?
Yes,
That sentence
usually
doesn't
with a
make any
foreign
sense.
accent.
And if you get an email that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Like, when was the last time FedEx emailed you an invoice? Like, really?
Yes.
Or whatever. Then having that base level of that the right level of minor paranoia that you're always like, really, when you're going through your stuff, and just having regular updates on what you should be looking for. Because again,
Yes.
as a regular computer user, this isn't your bag, right? You've got orders to get through. You've got customer inquiries to get through. You've got any number of things that aren't computer centric. So having somebody come by periodically and say, "Hey, by the way, did you know this is?" And here's an example of what it is, or periodically send you something harmless that as a test to help you keep trained up is it comes back to that teamwork part of the
Yes.
equation.
Well,
Yep.
a big part of business nowadays, obviously, everybody talks about culture, and in our business, it's incredibly important. But cybersecurity awareness, you don't want to create fear in your employees. You want to create
No.
awareness, because exactly like you said, Rick, you don't want them to be questioning every single email they're open or every. So as long as culture is equally as important as, like I said, cybersecurity awareness is, again, it's not about fear. It's about being aware of what
Yes.
you're doing and what to watch out for.
Yeah.
So, and
So
it's
So doing vulnerability assessment is like doctor checkup. Cybersecurity awareness is like flossing your teeth, right? You have to do it, and it protects your teeth from rotting, right? So brushing your teeth. So you do. It's not very intense. It's not really technical, but you need to do it. Sanitize and do certain things like and notice what's going on. Be aware of your surroundings so you don't get hacked, right? So
But
that's the key. So. Sorry, Cedric. I'm just going to move on because we are very pressed of time. So how about we talk about number 4, IT policies. Like I'm talking about maybe Active Directory. I'm talking about password enforcement and rotation strength, two-factor authentication. All of these IT policies, security policies that you might have in place. What do you see in the field, and why is it so important?
Well, the thing is that these are basically practical implementations of things to keep us safe and things to try and ensure that bad things don't happen. The things like the multi-factor authentication is incredibly powerful.
Yes.
Depending on how it's implemented and depending on your exact circumstances, it can also be incredibly irritating. And so
Right.
one of the things that you and so and no
It's
but
true.
but like the and
It's
so
true.
one of the things so one of the things that and so one of the things that I think is one of the really current challenges in the industry right now is how to find the right balance of multi-factor authentication that's appropriate to the services that it's covering, make it easier for people so that we can all collectively say multi-factor is an absolute requirement.
Yes.
Because the days of username and password being good enough they're gone.
Yep.
When we've got all of this stuff living in our accounts that can be accessed from any computer on the planet, and that's all that's between them, it's just not enough.
Yeah.
The multi-factor authentication creates a really great level of accountability, and so and in some ways it ties back to this security awareness training. It's not just having a test to see if you are aware of what weird looks like. It's also about that whole process of risk analysis
Yes.
Absolutely.
and thinking through what are the resources I'm trying to protect? What are tools that I can use to protect those resources? What are things that I can do to make sure that people accept the use of those tools, right? And understand why they're necessary. Nobody's going to agree to use multi-factor if they don't have some basic understanding of how this protects their whole world from going pear-shaped.
Yes.
And one of the things that's a really important, like that we're actively doing right now, because basically because of the number of tools and stuff that I have to use, I've got 18 freaking six-digit strings that are constantly updating on my phone. And I need to use a bunch of them every day. And so, one of the things that we've got as a priority is doing, there's things we can do to bring that number down and simplify that.
Yeah, and the good thing is that everybody and a lot of the apps out there is moving into multi-factor authentication, and usually using what do you call it, authenticators like Google Authenticator, for example, and not just in the professional sphere, but also in the personal sphere. So if you go to LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, they all have you can set up your authenticator for all of those applications. You go to your bank, is the same thing. Things like, for example, face recognition also work very well as multi-factor authentication. So we're moving into that sphere that is not just username and password, and the passwords should not be just like four digits and plus a number. They're much longer, right? It needs to be at least like a nine different characters with that are mixed, right? So
Perfect.
the last one that we have, the top 5 that I
Number
have
5,
here.
drum roll, number 5. Here we go. There we go. What's
Number
the last
5
one?
would be, updating. So patch management, updating your Windows machines, your Apple machines, your Linux in a constant basis, and making sure that you have some sort of remote management and monitoring system where you can monitor your endpoints and throw in scripts that can do updates in a constant basis. What do you think about that one, Cedric?
Don't run dinosaurs. 100%.
Great point.
No, the thing is that these threat actors, as we call them, their key stock and trade is to find old things that have problems with them.
Yes.
And
Right.
And with the whole world to work with, if you're one of those guys running old things that has known problems with it, then you are their key target audience.
Yes.
And they're they're out there scanning the internet, looking forward to meeting you as soon as possible. And
Opportunistic, right?
absolutely. And with security, as in just as like when you go hiking with a group of guys and you come across a bear. Job number 1: don't be the slowest guy.
I was going to say, run fast and don't be the last guy.
Yeah. Don't be.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Don't be the last guy to patch your router.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Updates to routers. Things like, for example, we go into some of our clients and we find out that no, they're like, oh yeah, I'm running Windows 10. I'm perfectly safe. Then we go in and we see that they haven't updated their Windows 10 for 2 years, right? So, and there's a slew of vulnerabilities and problems, security issues with that version of Windows 10 that they're running, right? So things like that are extremely important.
Yeah.
All right.
I totally
Anything
get
else
it.
from the crowd, Andrew?
No, I think we're good. We had definitely a bunch of questions, but I think would be very helpful for anybody watching, Dan, maybe just do a quick 2-second recap on tip 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So for those who are watching who came in late, and again, I apologize from my end, a little bit of technical difficulties there. So maybe just count them down again so people are aware of what that looks like again.
Sure. Number 1, I have backups and disaster recovery. Number 2, I have endpoint protection, so antivirus, domain filtering, and EDR, so endpoint protection and response. Number 3, I have security awareness training for the human component. Number 4, I have IT policies as well as Active Directory, password dual or multi-factor authentication. And number 5, I have continuous updating and patch management and monitoring using some sort of remote management and monitoring tool. Anything else, Cedric? A bonus? Do you have a bonus?
I think the really aside from good backup, so to speak, the really key thing that I think, and this ties into that security awareness training, is the importance of business process. Right?
Very much.
If somebody sends you an email saying, please wire transfer 150 grand or whatever, hey, a lot of small businesses saved by the fact that they don't have 150 grand lying around anyway.
Exactly. But still.
But like the other day, I had a client report to me that they had a guy who was refusing to implement 2FA. And he had a stupid password, and somebody logged into his OWA account as him, went into his address book, updated the underlying email address for a guy that he routinely emailed contracts to for leasing. And so now this guy's happily emailing his customers' detail and leasing contracts to a scammer. And that scammer goes and updates it to put in his bank account number, forwards it on to the guy who's supposed to pay the invoice. We're talking about $200,000 pieces of equipment here.
Wow.
And if this guy had happened to forward one of these emails to somebody with a less rigid and properly designed accounts payable process, 200 grand would have disappeared into the ether.
Well, and I think I think that's the human component too. I think this is critical, guys. I mean, we are also prone to type something into a computer, send an email. It's like, okay, we're done. I've done my job. I think when with that last layer of protection when it comes to awareness stuff, if you are about to transfer 200 grand, guys, pick up the phone and talk to your customer or talk to the individual. Think
Yep.
like if I'm about to send $200,000 to somebody, I'm going to be talking to him, or I'm going to be handing it to him
Absolutely.
face to face.
Yep.
Absolutely. I'm taking him to golf, right?
Something.
I know that person, right? So
Well, here's
I have a bonus for you.
yeah.
I have a bonus for you. This
Yeah.
is a bonus tip, pro tip. Hire a managed service provider,
Absolutely.
right? Don't take things on your own hands. You don't have to. I don't think it's not an expensive endeavor to hire somebody that knows what they're doing. So in this case, we have Cedric Puddy from Pundit. They're a managed service provider, right? Here locally in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge. So
How do we get a hold of Cedric?
how do we get a hold of Cedric? Cedric,
There we go.
Hey,
there you go.
we're online. www.pund-it.ca. pund-it.ca. I got to be fair though. I've got lots of great colleagues. So just make sure you've got some good guys in your corner to help
I agree.
help with this team sport.
Well said, Cedric. I mean, I love that, and I agree full-heartedly. At the end of the day, we all have skill sets. There's no question, and Rhino and you at Pundit. But there's a lot of great organizations out there, guys. Whoever's close to you, whoever you trust, but have somebody in your corner, and they're going to help protect you and help make sure that you have that confidence that you need.
Yep.
Exactly.
I've been at this for decades, and I have my coaches, and we all should.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love it.
So join us next Friday. We're going to be talking about social selling, so digital things like LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and as well as physical stuff. Physical
I need to get
social
in on that.
selling. Yeah, like playing golf with your customers. Like going to charity events and doing all of that stuff. So everything about social selling, both in the digital world and the physical world. Don't miss our live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube and podcast next week, Friday, 12 p.m. I hope to see you all next Friday.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cedric,
care,
for being a good sport and interacting with us. As you know, pund-it.ca if you want to contact Cedric, and he's also social. You can send him a LinkedIn message, and he'll be able to answer your calls.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
Friday.
Cheers.